Hello, I'm Henry, and I watched a movie. I watched Top Gun Maverick, and I would like to talk about it, please. Just real quick though, we crossed 300 subscribers since the last video, which is amazing. So thanks very much for that, everybody. I really appreciate it. Now, on to the movie. The Top Gun movies are quite unique in that they are military war movies, not set directly in an active military conflict or war. This is mostly due to the time period in which they are set and the subject matter that they deal with. War movies tend to be set in World War I or World War II or Vietnam or Afghanistan or Iraq. But because the Top Guns deal with hypermodern, at least contemporarily speaking for each movie, fighter jets, you can't really set them anywhere before the 80s, which misses a significant number of conflicts right there. And because they're essentially training arc / academy stories, as that's the setting and theme they wanted to show and explore, you can't just throw these trainees into an active war zone. So the writers ended up in a tricky situation. In military / war films, the antagonists tend to be the opposing side in that war. You do a World War II movie, the antagonists are going to be the Germans. But because we aren't in a war here, we can't do that. And we can't just have the antagonists being like one bad actor, one renegade, like they do in other action movies. Because our good guys are still part of the American military. And the American military would squash one bad actor, one renegade, like it was absolutely nothing. So how do we have antagonists? Well, I'll tell you. By being as vague as humanly possible. Now, the first Top Gun is semi-vague. The pilots of the opposing aircraft are never stated out loud to be from any particular nation, and the dialogue is very careful to not label them with any particular allegiance. But all the planes have a giant red star on their tail, and if the movie is set in the year it was made and came out, then we're well into the Cold War. You don't need a deer stalker and a pipe to work out that these antagonists are from the Soviet Union. Though in the audio commentary, in the special features on the DVD release, it was stated they were initially meant to be from North Korea. Top Gun Maverick is even more vague. Like the first Top Gun, the antagonists are never identified out loud. Their country of origin, who they are fighting for, is never stated. They are simply called the enemy. And boy, does that word do some heavy lifting in this movie. Enemy comes up 38 times in the script. For an uncommon word, that is a lot. Who are we fighting against? The enemy. Who's flying that plane? The enemy. Who's got illegal weapons of mass destruction? The enemy. Who are we blowing up? The enemy. It works. It covers all ground and it is perfectly, completely non-committal. But as a result of this all-encompassing umbrella term for our antagonists, as a result of this frankly desperate attempt to keep who we're blowing up faceless, you do start to notice it. It soon becomes clear that they will not, absolutely, no matter what happens, name who we are blowing up. And it starts to become funny. And considering we're dealing with like chemical weapons or some kind of nuclear reactor thing, funny isn't really the reaction you want from our protagonists talking about our antagonists. But it is kind of funny nonetheless. Okay, but why though? Why dance around the subject so intentionally, so noticeably? Why risk your dialogue becoming unintentionally funny by not naming who we are fighting? Well, I think it's a case of not wanting to offend. Not wanting to offend for one reason, glazed in another reason. The surface level reason is some sort of false corporate wokeness. We can't vilify a nation of people. That's not nice. That's not what we should do. Well, why can't we do that? Well, it's not fair to the vast majority of decent civilians living in that country who probably don't want to be doing a chemical weapons or a nuclear bombs. And because of money. Yes, I fear this is the real reason. If you vilify an entire nation of people in your movie, people aren't going to want to spend money to go see your movie of themselves getting vilified. And their money is just as good as everyone else's. For evidence of this, you can look at a different example within the same movie. Within Top Gun Maverick, they took a Taiwan flag patch off Tom Cruise's jacket just so it wouldn't offend China, who don't recognize Taiwan as its own country. China's a massive market and their money is as good as everyone else's in the eyes of a Hollywood executive. Remember, it currently isn't 1941 where a German's money wasn't good as everyone else's, when we didn't care about offending our enemies. But what if we didn't care in 2022 as well? What if we actually named our enemy here? In Top Gun Maverick, who is the enemy? Well, I think the best place to start is with who it isn't. I don't think it's any nation in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, aka NATO. That is Albania, Belgium, Bulgaria, Canada, Croatia, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Montenegro, Netherlands, North Macedonia, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Sweden, Turkey, UK, and the US, obviously. If a NATO nation was doing something America didn't like, America would just need to ask, and that nation would just have to stop. Remember that time the UK did a war because America told us to do a war? If America found out we were doing something shady, they'd just be like, can you knock that off? And we'd have to be like, oh yeah, quite bloody good choice. I also think we can eliminate the aspiring members of NATO. That's Bosnia and Herzegovina, Georgia, and Ukraine. All three would like to be in on NATO. Quite pressingly, they wouldn't risk that potential membership by getting in the US's bad books. I would now think the next step would be to eliminate as possible enemies all nations in the Partnership for Peace program, an alliance of unity set up after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. But seeing as one of those members of the Partnership for Peace program is Russia, I don't think it's working all that well, and if one member of that program is capable of doing something that the whole world, including America, condemns, theoretically there's nothing stopping the other nations from doing so as well. So it could be one of them. Okay, to eliminate some more countries, let's look at exactly what the target is, what the crux of the plot hinges on. Maverick is called back to Top Gun to train some ace pilots for a very difficult mission to destroy, quote, an unsanctioned uranium enrichment plant built in violation of a multilateral NATO treaty. I don't know what a multilateral NATO treaty is, but the fact that this violates it confirms our decision to discount any NATO members. A NATO member violating a NATO treaty would not happen. The uranium enrichment plant is said to be a direct threat to the US's allies in the region, but conveniently doesn't say which region. But the fact that there are allies in that region should help us narrow things down in a moment. What I would like to do now is eliminate any country that doesn't have or have the capability to build a uranium enrichment plant. From Wikipedia, the following countries are known to operate enrichment facilities: Argentina, Brazil, China, France, Germany, India, Iran, Japan, the Netherlands, North Korea, Pakistan, Russia, the UK, and the United States. It also states that Belgium, Italy, and Spain have access to France's enrichment facility, that South Africa and Libya used to have facilities in the past, that Australia is developing a newfangled one, and that Israel is also rumored to have one. Okay, so what we can do is like some kind of VLOOKUP or a mail merge or something with that list of countries associated with uranium enrichment plants, removing those we eliminated earlier from NATO. That leaves us with Argentina, Brazil, China, India, Iran, Japan, North Korea, Pakistan, Russia, South Africa, Libya, and Israel. We can further narrow this list down by crossing off all major non-NATO allies of the US. An official designation for exactly what it sounds like. Countries they aren't going to send Tom Cruise to drop bombs on. That'll get rid of Argentina, Brazil, Japan, Pakistan, and Israel, leaving us with China, India, Iran, North Korea, Russia, South Africa, and Libya. Scratch South Africa off that list because, as we mentioned a moment ago, the movie states there are allies within the region of the enemy, and the closest major ally of the US to South Africa is Kenya, 3,000 miles away. So that leaves us with a final list of possible enemies as China, India, Iran, North Korea, Russia, and Libya. Okay, so how do we pinpoint the enemy from those 6 countries? Well, the enemy is stated in the movie to possess 5th generation fighter jets that hold a technological advantage over those the US have. A 5th generation fighter isn't something the movie made up. They exist in the real world and a very select few countries have access to them or are developing them. Of our shortlist, it is only China, India, and Russia. Okay, now we're really honing in. Can we get any closer? Yes. How? Topography. In the movie, after launching from an aircraft carrier, our heroes pass into enemy territory and immediately find themselves in a snowy mountain range directly from the coast. Based on this really cool topographic map of the world, there is really only one place that this mission can be happening: northeast Russia. India is very low lying and China doesn't have any mountain ranges along its coastline. Plus, all the trees are pine. And if you overlay a distribution of pine trees map over our topographic map, you can see that this mission can only be taking place in northeast Russia. So there you go, we solved it. The enemy is Russia. Well, no. If it was Russia, and the movie is set in the year it came out, 2022, and the events of the movie happened in that year, it would absolutely cause World War III. US fighter jets flying low over Russia itself, not just Russian-controlled airspace in the sea, would be enough to do that on its own. But they also launch missiles from that aircraft character I mentioned a moment ago to lay waste to an enemy airstrip. They succeed in their mission and blow up the aforementioned uranium enrichment plant. They kill a bunch of soldiers and they shoot down a bunch of planes. This is madness. Yay, Maverick and Rooster saved the day. Let's go home. Oh no, sunny San Diego has been consumed by nuclear hellfire. There is no way this is all happening in Russia. To be honest, the US is committing such drastic action here that it's pretty unlikely that the enemy is any major nation of the world. Remember, the US isn't at war with Russia or China or anywhere as big as that. The things the Navy do in this movie would be fine in an actual war film, but as I said at the beginning of the video, the Top Gun movies are war films not set in an actual war. But then on the other hand, a smaller nation who maybe would not retaliate so violently won't have the capacity to construct a uranium enrichment plant or have access to 5th generation fighter jets. A real catch-22 situation. And with that catch-22 situation, I now understand why they said the word enemy without naming an actual nation. Because there is no nation that can be what the enemy is in this movie. I take back what I said about money glazed in wokeness. The reluctance to name the enemy here wasn't not wanting to sound offensive in any way, and wasn't for fear of alienating a potential market. It was because it literally wouldn't have made sense for them to name the enemy, so they didn't. I think they might have missed a trick though. I think they should have taken this opportunity to invent a country, like a Latveria or an Atlantis or a Scotland, you know, like something really out there. Hello. Thanks a lot for getting to the end of the video. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Thanks again for getting us over 300 subscribers. It's trundling along very nicely. We're getting bigger and bigger every day, so that's great. Thanks a lot, everybody. I really appreciate it. Cheers. I'll see you in the next one.